Yes.
What's your real topic? That's not just about you. Unless this one's about you.
No, it's not about me. Twitter.
Now, we talked about Twitter before. What's the angle this time?
Well, Twitter is kind of like falling apart in a corporate way. And what?
No, I'm just freaking out because I love Twitter.
I do too. But I want to talk to you guys about, there's like this notion, this idea, to catch people up, like there's been a lot of turnover in the executive areas of Twitter. Twitter's stock has fallen dramatically on the market. About
this new timeline layout.
Yeah, they're making changes to kind of keep Twitter relevant. And what surprises me is that I find Twitter to have the most utility and the most use. I think it's like the most diverse thing. Like people are like, well, why don't you use Instagram? And I'm because like, why would I use Instagram? Like it doesn't. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Instagram. I'm just saying like it's just pictures.
But it's
or
not.
Like,
it's
or
even
Vine
more
is
words than Twitter.
Well, it lets you write things underneath, but like the idea of Instagram was pictures, or with Vine, it's just these short clips of videos, or Periscope is like live video or whatever. It's like I can just kind of, although Periscope's associated with Twitter, it's a bad example, but I can kind of like fold these things in, Twitter Twitter, you can do everything you want on Twitter. I mean, I still think Twitter is just the most useful and the most compact, and I find it has the most utility.
I agree.
I disagree.
Fuck you.
But what I'm curious is if, there's this notion that Twitter can go away or disappear. And my whole thing is, the people talk about MySpace. And I'm like, well, MySpace is way different because MySpace was eclipsed by something that was just like it, but better. And there's nothing like Twitter that's even remotely like Twitter or better than Twitter. So I'm not worried about it disappearing, but I'm wondering what you guys think about its future. And if you think it's still useful, if there's something that we don't even know about it yet that we'll be using in the future, because there are these ubiquitous social platforms that I feel like we're going to be using in 20 years. And I think Twitter's one of them. I think Facebook's obviously the other one. I'm not so sure that any of the other ones will exist in the way they do now, except for those two, because those two have the most long running tail. Like the zeitgeist like continues with Facebook. I mean, my Facebook account is 12 years old. That's like really scary when you think about that. Like it's 12 years old, and I'll probably use it for another 12 years after that. And Twitter obviously is a 10-year-old company now, but seems to be falling. So I don't know. I just wanted to know your guys' thoughts on Twitter.
I don't think the sky's falling on Twitter. I think people make mountains out of molehills. They talked about this timeline, everybody flipped out, and it was like, at no point was I like, oh, this is RIP Twitter, right? Was trending or whatever. I'm like, it's not gonna die based on this. And they're like, and sure enough, this is an option. You can do this. All right, cool. I'll look into it and see what I think about it, and yada yada yada. I don't mind. It's similar when I wake up in the morning. I look and now they have that new like, what happened while you were away thing. I'm like, this is actually kind of cool. Thank you. I do like seeing this. This is an interesting thing to see what people were up to while I was sleeping.
Yeah.
I still love Twitter. I still think Twitter's awesome. It's still my preferred social media platform. I like it. Like we've talked about before, it's the easiest way to talk to the best friends, in the way of like, you have 140 characters to make your point. You know what I mean? I have 140 characters to respond, which is great for, what do you think of this? What should I play? What about, and I can give you short responses and go. Whereas on Facebook or even the Kind of Funny forums, I open up my DMs or whatever, and it's just a wall of text, and I'm like, I don't have time to read this or give you the response you deserve, so I just won't, and I can move on.
Yeah, no, Twitter's my favorite to use as well. When it comes to the MySpace and Facebook thing, I think that's a little bit different. Like until there is a thing, there's not a thing. Until there was Facebook, MySpace reigned supreme. So it's like,
good point.
It's not like they were competing and then one just went away. Like that happened pretty damn quickly. And with Twitter, I think that it is a little bit different as well, because Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the things kind of currently going on now, they rose with the iPhone, and they are ubiquitous with people using their phones, because when iPhone came out in 2006 or whatever, there wasn't a MySpace app. Yeah. There was a Facebook app. There was a Twitter app when apps eventually became a thing. So I think it's going to be a lot harder to dethrone the big guys, because they're there, and also they're just kind of eating everything up. So now Facebook has Instagram, and Twitter has Periscope and Vine. So it's like there's the main things of Facebook and Twitter, and then everything else is just going to kind of feed into that shit and be like uses for it. Twitter, I think we're in a bubble with Twitter. Like we all use Twitter, but Twitter is not the most used. More people are on Instagram because of Facebook, and also just because that's how most people use the shit. And I think the gaming industry specifically is very Twitter heavy, very Twitter focused, but you look at other stuff and that's just simply not true.
Sure.
Having said that, Twitter has made its way into like politics and shit, and they promote their Twitters and stuff like that.
Hashtags.
But a lot of things also promote Instagrams, and I think it really kind of depends on what group you're talking about. And the versatility with all of them is really high, and it's just different. It's a different lens to look through all the different things.
Do you think Twitter's going away anytime soon?
No, definitely not. I think all of the ones we were talking about are here to stay for a long time. Specifically Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And with Twitter, people are afraid of change. And they're so irrational about it, and they're going to get angry about anything.
Get the fucking moments thing off the goddamn app.
But it's like, you just don't use it. So who cares? And
they move it around and I click on it accidentally.
And I hate stuff like that. But it's like, all right, then it's a minor annoyance. Then you get used to it, and then it's the same shit. In terms of their adding more character limits and stuff, I think it's a bad idea. That's what they have Medium for. That's another thing that they own that's under their whole umbrella.
Yeah.
I doubt they're going to do it. You can do surveys all you want. You can do test things and whatever and put it out there and see what the public reacts to it. They're not going to do it.
Sure.
And if they do, there's a lot of data backing up. It's a good idea. And eventually we're going to like it because that's how this thing works. You know, if they added more character limits, if I had 140 characters plus a picture, I'd fucking love that.
Yeah.
Because
that's the worst when it eats into that crap. I hate that.
Or like if I can have character limit plus a link plus like it's things like that where I'm not against that. Like don't hold me to this 140 thing when there's all this other shit that things change, things adapt, you know? And the change with the algorithmic timeline, make it an option. Just make it one of the tabs. I'd like that. You know, I'd like to be able to see the things that are tailored towards me, just like the while you were away. Those things are awesome. Everyone bitched about it when it first came out. Why? It's just extra functionality.
Sure. What's more interesting, I think, is what's going to happen at the top. Like you're saying, there was all this executive turnover. I was reading about it the other day. Who comes in? Now that these new people are in, what do they think? What does it do to the stock? Will Twitter ever really? Is it ever going to be super profitable? Is it ever? I mean, are they headed for trouble? You know what I mean?
It's just it's the nature of like overvaluing all these companies. Like Twitter's already on the market, so it's worth what it's worth now. But you see this with Snapchat. Like, there's no way in God's green earth Snapchat's worth $1 billion, for instance. But like but they are a unicorn company because they are a privately held company with a valuation of over $1 billion. But they can't possibly make that much money in order to like the nature of what they do is it's just not possible to make that much money. Like it's not. And short of like having a service so great that you can get literally millions of people to subscribe to it and pay for it, which is something that Snapchat's not gonna be able to do or Twitter is gonna do. No matter how much people love these things, like when you ask them to really pay for them, they're not gonna do it. So, you know, I think that it's more about getting things in line in terms of like what things are worth. And Twitter is going to be, you know, can be targeted for a hostile takeover or something like that because it's public. So I think that the company can very much change. I don't agree that MySpace and Facebook weren't competing with each other. They certainly were. They were concurrent to each other for a long time. And
what's a long time?
3 or 4 years before MySpace really got killed, you know, because like,
I don't know if it was 3 or 4. It was more like 2. Like once Facebook got going, like, yeah, Facebook existed. But like there was that year or two boot up time where Facebook wasn't a thing until 2007. I would say. I'm talking an overall.
I mean, not for you, but for people in college.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like it wasn't a thing that everybody used.
No,
everybody used MySpace.
No, of course, but I do. You know, the reason my Facebook account's so old is because Northeastern was one of the very first schools on it. So I made my account in early 2004, and I remember, to your point, like when people were finally allowed to sign up to it that weren't even in schools and stuff like that, like didn't have .edu accounts. A lot of people don't even know that about Facebook anymore because that was such a long time ago. Like Facebook, you only could use Facebook if you had a .edu account from a very certain school.
That was the first time Facebook, we all said it was dead.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
My mom's on Facebook. This is dumb.
But they knew what they were doing and they did it or whatever. But like Facebook changed and evolved and stole MySpace's audience. I mean, that's what happened.
In 2007.
Yeah, by 2007, I would say, because even if you're in school and then if you're an alumni of a school or so like.
But I mean, I was in high school in 2007 and I couldn't get a Facebook account until like I got it as soon as you could. And that was either late 06 or early 07.
Yeah, but my point is that, you know, it's not only for college kids, it's for people that were in college or are going to college and get their .edus finally when you get accepted, or alumni of the schools as well. So it just slanted older. And it wasn't until it democratized that like it definitely started to eat MySpace's lunch. But by that point, like we had already known behind the wall at Facebook or whatever using it that it was way superior in a lot of different ways. But the site had changed a lot. I mean, in 2004, your wall was a field that anyone could edit and write whatever they wanted. So like if someone wrote something, you'd have to like sign your name, and then someone could just come in and delete it all, and then like write something on your wall. It was like supposed to be like a whiteboard on your dorm room door or whatever. So like that site has changed significantly. I think Facebook's kind of getting a little out of control, but it's so ubiquitous that it's never going to go anywhere. And that was like kind of what I was wondering is if Twitter is really the only other social network that really is not going to ever go anywhere because it's just too ingrained and more than that, it's too useful. You know, that's the thing that I talk about with Twitter a lot is that I just think it has exceptional utility as it is right now. And if they don't fuck with it too much, it could stay that way, but it could also be ruined. It's like kind of a razor's edge where you start fucking around with the timeline, you start fucking around with how much people can say on it and brevity, you know, is no longer kind of what makes Twitter run. Like figuring out what you want to say in a very distilled way, I think is
The facts. Get to the facts. No, I was talking about it when Twitter turned the corner for me, because I remember when did Twitter even come around? We want to say
2006, I think we went.
Okay, so yeah,
but no one used Twitter until
2009.
I remember at IGN in the early going of the days or whatever when IGN set up its Twitter, and that was the thing where we all tweeted to it. You wrote an article, we all signed into IGN's Twitter and would just tweet out the link or whatever, right? And there was no real thing to it. And I remember when they finally got the first social manager, right? And we're like, all right, now submit your links this way. Not everybody's going to tweet. And I remember when they were originally said, all right, you write an article, you put up a review, you do whatever, you go in there and you tweet your link. I was like, Twitter's so fucking dumb. Why would I ever do this? And I remember when they, like months later, they removed it. And like, okay, now one person's tweeting for IGN or whatever. And I was like, fuck, I miss Twitter. And I got Twitter, and I'd already been camping on my name because I knew I'd give it eventually because I'm a pushover. Or I was just learning to start camping on my name. Started using Twitter then, and it was just the dumb thing of this, that, and the other, and there's always this one moment in time, which is I think is rare, where it was on Christmas break one year. I was playing video games till the wee hours of the morning, and I came down at like 2 a.m. to walk Portillo. And this is when I lived right by the ferry building. And I came down in the high rise and came out, and I turned the corner, and it was just cops all the way down, and they had like 6 guys pressed up against the glass of the post office with like their spotlights off their cars on them, and people with guns drawn. Me and Portillo were like, all right. And we 360'd back, and I went upstairs, and I went on to I was like, well, somebody's got to have broken into coverage. Like, this is like, there was helicopters and shit. I'm like, what is going on? And there was nothing there. I went on the internet. Nobody, like, SF Gate didn't have an article up or breaking or anything like that. And then I was like, wait a second. I opened up Twitter and I put in like, my vague location of like ferry building, shooting, cops. And it was like, and there was all these, there's been a shooting at Sinbad's. This many people are hurt. Da da da. I was like, fuck, like this is so much more than the time wasting bullshit device I thought it was, where I was sitting around being like, wow, video games and wings, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, like this is like, now when something happens, that's where you go. And it still is for me. Like, some, like today, a kid tweeted at us and was like, just wanted you to know that DMX is like on death's door. And I was like, what? And they put DMX in the search, and I get the TMZ article and all the thing. I'm like, all right, you know what I mean? Like, it's a in the moment Google. Google's great. Don't get me wrong, and you can do it on Google as well, obviously. But it's more like, all right, this, and then what's happened last hour, the news. Yeah. Whereas this also, then the downside, of course, is that it doesn't need to be verified, so rumors can spread like nothing. But
exactly,
you jump in there, and there is that moment of like, this is what's happening, and now you know. And like, it's all, I feel like 90% of the news that I can, like big news stories that have happened in recent years, right, are broken to me by Twitter. You're scrolling and somebody's dead. This has happened. This, you know what I mean? Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's a cool little device.
I love it. I love it so much. I don't think any of them are safe. I don't think even Facebook or Twitter are safe forever. I do think that there will be something at some point.
Facebook's the weird one for me, where I gambled wrong. Where Missouri got into Facebook super early. I don't know what year, but right around the time Colin's describing, because I graduate in 05, right? But I remember, and maybe it was 04, maybe it was 03 when Facebook, and maybe it was even younger than that. But I remember my friends Parker and Booth, who were a year below me, they got in, and they were into Facebook huge. They were all over Facebook. And I was like, they're like, you should make a Facebook account. I'm like, that's a young kid's game. I'm not going to do that. I'm a senior. I'm going to be graduating here. That's what all you young kids are doing. You know, I'm not going to do it. And I didn't do it forever and ever and ever. And it was a similar story of, I graduated and went to work at the newspaper, and there was a scandal about this. There was a couple of scandals, I guess I should say, that broke through Facebook of like kids in college who were doing dumb shit and posting photos of it, right? And so there was like 2 or 3 times where I had to call my girlfriend at the time and ask her for her Facebook login to get to
see stuff.
Because like there was a time like one of the baseball players was suspended from the team, and because he had done this, that, or the other, and there was like the cops had arrested him, whatever, and like everybody was trying to contact him for a story, and I was like, wait a second. And I called the girlfriend, got his phone number off his Facebook page, and called him, got the comment. You know what I mean? It was like that thing of like, shit, there's really utility to this thing that I thought, again, it was just like dumb kids putting up photos or videos of them playing beer pong or whatever, when in reality, it's like you can use this in so many different levels.
Yeah, I mean, even to this day, like, again, we are so in this world where Facebook's kind of like a thing that we don't use anymore, but Facebook is in every age group, on every platform, the most used every single day.
Yeah.
And it more so than Twitter is the place people get news.
Right.
Like everything you're just saying, that's what people
and I know,
Facebook
and that's
for.
the weird thing of like, it's one of those where I had moved away from Facebook, so I make the Facebook page back then, you know what I mean? Use it fine. Come to IGN, we start getting popular. I accept all the fans from beyond on it, right? And it gets all fucked up. So I convert it to a fan page and then eventually make a secondary page, blah, blah, blah. And so now I don't use it correctly anymore, really at all. I just pop in once in a while. But no, what you're talking about is like, I'll be on the phone with my mom for the calls that I don't give her enough. And she'll be like, oh my God, did you see this? Did you see that John had this? And like, she's talking about my high school friends that I have, that I'm so close with. And I'm like, no, did you go to dinner with them? She's like, no, it's all on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, like, my Facebook's still totally fucked, and it's just like notifications from people I don't know.
And it gets hard to use, especially when there's the page versus the profile whole thing. Pages, like, it just, there's a lot of stuff that they don't do correctly.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of shit that they fucking nail. And I think video is the other huge thing for them. Now that they have that, that's a game changer. They need to figure out the content ID. They need to figure out all this stuff. But I mean, they're getting more views than YouTube. Whoever would have thought there'd be a video platform that gets more views than YouTube per month?
Right.
Like, that's insane.
I gotta take the time because I see Colin on it all the time. Colin lives on Facebook, and I look at him like I gotta get back on the horse here at some point and figure out what the fuck I'm doing with it.
Yeah, I mean, I every single day I comment in the Kind of Funny Facebook group every day before I go to sleep. I just kind of look through shit and I just
like fuck all of you.
Yeah,
it's just a good way. It's just a good thing to use. Like Facebook's interesting in the sense that it does have like great reach. Like it's similar to Google in the sense that it's so ubiquitous that it really will be impossible almost to displace it. Like I do think I think with great confidence Facebook will literally exist in 50 years. Like I just can't imagine that. Like, it's just too big. It's too much.
Too
part
big
of people.
To fail.
It's too much. It's too part of the way people do things. It's very similar to Google, like or an alpha, like and a lot of Alphabet's properties where it's just like it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But I think Twitter's somewhere in the middle where I don't think it's going anywhere. But I think it's got to change and got to figure out a way to monetize.
I wouldn't be
itself.
surprised if. I'm trying not to see. Twitter got scaled back. You're going to hear about layoffs, this, you know what I mean? Da, da, da. But then again, I just don't, I think it's also there at times maybe overthinking what Twitter needs to be. You know what I mean? Where it could just be what it is now. And Grant, I don't know if that lasts. I'm not a web developer. I don't know that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because we've talked to people at Twitter and they, some of the stuff they're talking about, what they're going to be doing in the next 6 months to a year, like, whoa, that sounds fucking cool. You
sounds
know what
really
I mean?
cool and awesome. And I think that they're focused on things like Vine and Periscope and Medium and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's how you expand the use of Twitter. It's
Sure.
give people apps to use within the app. And you can go really far with that. I think that their biggest problem is getting the people that aren't on Twitter on Twitter. The people that are there love it and they're going to be there. But the people that aren't, the millions and millions and millions of people that aren't, that could be, that they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook. Why aren't they here? And it's just not for them, you know?
Yeah.
And or kids growing up aren't on Twitter. Like, that's just the thing. Like, if you're looking at people like
They're on Instagram.
16 and younger, yeah, it's Snapchat, it's Instagram, and it's Facebook, but they're not on Twitter.
Interesting.
So
young kids, get on Twitter.
And
it's
follow me.
enjoyable. And
That's Tim
follow GameOverGreggy.